Hello and welcome to episode 48 of Your Ultimate Comeback. Today is just me. My co-host Raquel is in San Luis Obispo watching her daughter play in one of her beach volleyball tournaments. So what I thought I'd do today is just do a question and answer session. And what I did, I just wrote down a number of questions that I received throughout the week. And I'm just going to share my answers. And I think some of these will pertain to a lot of you and probably questions you're pondering. So I tried to write down the ones I thought would have the most impact or quality of information for you as the listener. So the first one I want to share actually was pretty cool. I got to speak to my daughter's club volleyball team. And my daughter's never heard me speak. You know how that is with your kids. Like they really don't want to, hear what you have to say. But she had to sit in the crowd and listen. And so I got to give my whole nutrition talk on performance and answer a bunch of questions. And afterwards I said to her, I was like, oh, was that embarrassing having me, your father, in front of all of them speaking? She goes, no, actually it was really interesting. I got a lot out of it. And this past week, she implemented a bunch of the stuff that we talked about. And my Lord, I could not be more excited just to see her energy, her effort, her performance on the court has just been drastically improved. So it's pretty exciting. So one of the young ladies in the crowd asked a really simple question, and I want to share it with you because I think it is very relevant. She simply asked, how should I eat to perform better in sports? And it doesn't just go for sports. It can just go anything that takes effort, whether it's mental effort, work, energy, things like that. Over the years, I've worked a lot with professional athletes, men and women, CEO types, entrepreneurs, highly stressful, successful people. And what those people care about most is how to show up big with great energy and perform well with great brain performance. And how you eat really can impact that. And it's really interesting because I believe food impacts the brain really fast. For example, if you eat a bunch of carbohydrates, you're going to feel lazy and lethargic and not want to do a whole lot within an hour of having that meal most of the time for most people. And there's a lot of correlation between what you eat and how your brain responds to that. So I'm just going to share with you real quick how I have my high performers that need to show up in a big energy state with great focus and great drive to create that. So typically I like everyone I work with, I'm going to say 98% of the people I work with, to start the day off with a high protein, high fat meal. You wake up, you haven't done anything, so your muscle glycogen levels are going to be full. You eat a bunch of carbohydrates, you're going to have a big insulin spike, a big crash, and your cravings are going to kick off, your hunger is going to kick off, and your brain's going to be lethargic during the day. So when you start the day off, in my experience with most people with carbohydrates, it kicks off hunger issues all day, energy highs and lows. It just creates an ugly interface in regards to high energy and focused performance. When you start the day off with proteins and fats, it really, really helps stabilize blood sugar better. And it activates the neurotransmitters of dopamine and acetylcholine so you have more focused energy and more drive. Another thing that works well for some people is to just skip breakfast. I'm not the biggest fan of that because it is upregulating stress hormones. So if you're somebody that likes to exercise a lot or you're an athlete, I don't really recommend that pathway. But for some people that don't exercise a lot, they can get away with it and it works. So one of those two options is typically the best way to start the day. And then when we get to lunch, it all depends. Are you performing before lunch or after lunch? When I used to travel the world speaking a lot, I'd always perform between breakfast and lunch. I do a half-day seminar in a lot of my speaking engagements. So what I would then do at lunch is I would have to turn everything off and start my recovery process after I was done speaking. So I'd have a lot of carbs at lunch. But if you are performing after lunch, between lunch and dinner, which is when usually when most athletes are performing, is late afternoon. So I tell those athletes or those people that need to perform well after lunch to, again, keep carbohydrates out of the diet. So a lot of protein, vegetables, and good fats. And then what I like is 30 to 45 minutes before the performance starts, whether it's sport or a big meeting or whatever it is, where you got to have a lot of energy and fully engaged and you're going to be given a lot of effort, I like to have that person consume fruit. Fruit will replenish muscle glycogen because if that gets low, you'll feel a dip in energy. So fruit 30 to 45 minutes before you perform, you get after it. And then at the end of the day, dinner, after you're done performing and it's time to kick into recovery, try to promote a better sleep cycle, that's where we want to introduce carbohydrates. So anytime I need to bring the stress hormones down and kickstart recovery and mellow the body out is when I like to include complex carbohydrates. So what my daughter's done is she wakes up, has a high protein breakfast, has a paleo style lunch, has fruit before she plays, and then after she's playing, when she comes home for dinner, is when she then has protein and a lot of complex carbs. And this week, she just, especially last night, she played lights out. I'm going to go watch her play this evening. Again, I can't wait to see just how much more focused she is, so more energized she is. The brain really dictates performance. So the better your brain is in the moment, the more focused it is, the more drive you have, the better you're going to perform. So when I look at nutrition, what I taught these athletes is, don't look at this, I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to lose weight. Look at this as a performance mechanism. So if you want a performance-driving meal, keep carbs out. And if you want a recovery-driving meal, include carbs. It's pretty simple, and it works really well. So I told the girls, like, you got to focus on, I talk about this all the time on the podcast, getting 1 gram per pound of body weight in of protein every day. And then I really focused on making sure they're drinking half their body weight in ounces of water a day. And I also shared with them things like LMNT or electrolyte-based package you can put in your first bottle of water of the day. So make sure you have plenty of minerals, plenty of electrolytes to stay well hydrated. And then use that strategy. No carbs in all the meals before you perform. Lots of carbs in the meal after you perform. So if your life is based on wanting to have good energy, you can strategically use nutrition just like I laid it out to drive your energy and performance no matter what it is you're doing. Question number 2 that I received this week it's becoming a hot topic. It's about peptides. I was asked, do you use peptides? And if yes, which ones do you like? I've been playing around with peptides for, almost 2 or 3 years now. Longer than that. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was introduced to my first peptide. Before anyone really knew what they were, I had a doctor that prescribed me one. And we're going to do a deep dive on peptides next week. I have a gentleman named Gino from Beyond Health coming in to talk all about peptides because this is coming up more and more. But I've tried a lot of them. I've tried peptides that kick my body into producing more growth hormone. I thought those were pretty good. I can't remember the name of that one. That was the very first one I was ever introduced to. But I've also used one called BPC 157 and I think it's BP 500 or something like that. It was a combination of these two when I was injured and needing to really drive recovery and healing. That BPC 157 is incredible for that. And the second one, it was something 500. I think it was BP 500. I added that in one time to get a little more enhancement of that recovery. But BPC 157, I've taken it via injections to subcutaneous fat. That worked pretty well. Dr. John Lohr, that was a guest of ours a while back, he had me do IV BPC 157, and holy cow, that was phenomenal. It just really helps promote healing and recovery, especially when you're injured. I've also used, the semaglutides, like the Ozempics and all that. Those are actually peptides. I've never used them, but I've been doing a lot of research into those because they're fascinating. GLP-1 is what's impacted by these peptides. And GLP-1 does a lot of things. It helps heal your gut up. It helps optimize and clean up the brain. And it also controls appetite. What I recently learned, one of the most beneficial things with eating more protein is that it stimulates more GLP-1. That's when you eat enough protein, you're more satiated. I mean, you're not as hungry when you do that. Your cravings aren't as bad because it's stimulating more GLP-1. I have one client who has really focused on doing that. And it looks like she's been on Ozempic. Like, no one will believe her that she's not on Ozempic. But what she did was she really focused on increasing her protein intake, which has an impact on the GLP-1. But the difference is I have a lot of conversations with her about how hungry she is and how much food she's eating. And when you are typically working with someone on something like Ozempic, the biggest issue is they're not hungry at all. So they're hardly eating anything. So that has been really interesting to me because she looks like it. She doesn't have a lot of the side effects of Ozempic. And people don't realize that her weight loss has been going on over a year, not over just a few months. But it's pretty awesome. But that is the beneficial factor I realized that also helps in the scenario. So if you want to increase your own GLP-1, eat more protein and you'll get that. If you are using things like Ozempic, semaglutide, again, there's so many beneficial things to this. I'm really looking into actually microdosing and thinking about trying it from a microdosing standpoint just because of the massive benefit it has on the brain. I don't need the weight loss part of it. I also want to see if it can help me control my cravings. Because I talked to some of my clients using it, and like the best part is, you can put a pie in front of me, and I just don't care. You can put donuts in front of me, and I don't really want it. So it's helping them make better choices when they are hungry to eat. But it's easier on them to pass the foods that they would typically gorge on. So I'm interested in some of those benefits. But if you are on it, I was kind of fearful and kind of started hearing things how a lot of the weight loss is muscle mass based. You're losing a lot of muscle mass. We don't want that sarcopenia because it slows the metabolism down. It's the worst thing that can happen. But one of my clients, Stephanie, just forwarded me a podcast by an orthopedic surgeon who really specializes in the cellular metabolism and is a big fan of peptides. He's been using GLP-1s for a long time, semaglutides. And what he said was, it's a misnomer. It doesn't create that. It's the semaglutide, Ozempic, those things do not cause the muscle wasting. It's the lifestyle that comes along with it that is causing the muscle wasting. What he has found is if people focus on resistance training, lifting weights, and also eating enough protein, the muscle wasting doesn't happen. Any form of dieting will cause that sarcopenia to happen, that muscle wasting, because muscle is so metabolically active, it takes a lot of energy. So if it's requiring too much, the body will strip that off, and that'll be part of the weight loss. So he said, look, it's not these peptides that are around the GLP-1 that are causing the issue. It's the way people are deciding not to eat at all, to not lift weights. They're not changing their lifestyle while they're using it to maintain the muscle mass. So I thought that was really interesting. So again, that's one I'm super excited about playing around with and looking into. That's the gist of it, of what I've tried, what I've looked into. The growth hormone enhancing one, I really liked. And what I like about peptides is they tell your body to produce more of its own. If you go and you just take growth hormone, your body will stop making its own, and you're taking exogenous growth hormone to replace it. What I like about peptides, they're naturally occurring compounds that just stimulate your body to produce more of these certain areas they're targeting. Another question I got asked, actually this again was when I gave the speaking engagement to my daughter's volleyball team. What supplements do you currently take? I don't take a lot of supplements. I try to really focus on eating well, sleeping well. Like that's more of my struggle points. So I put a lot of emphasis around that. So I do magnesium every night. I do magnesium bisglycinate by Thorne. I do that every night before bed. I do creatine. I'm a big fan of creatine, so I'm always taking that. I typically will do a protein shake with, currently what I've been doing is a grass-fed whey with something called Carbolin post-workout to get some protein and carbs back into my system real quick when I'm done training. But Sarah Banta, the lady that was just on our last podcast, I thought her stuff was really intriguing and interesting, so I purchased a couple of her supplements, and I've incorporated those. I got her silver product she talked about, but it caught my interest. She has a nasal spray that's really good for things like sinus issues and things like that. And I was thinking of my son, who a lot of times has allergies and sinus issues. I have bad asthma. So I got that, and I started doing that. I'm just doing 2 to 4 sprays a couple times a day up my nose. And shout out to her. I wasn't even expecting this, but probably for the last 8 to 12 months, I've been having to use my albuterol, my rescue inhaler, at least twice a day. I started the nasal spray of silver 6 days ago. Haven't had to use my inhaler once since I started it, so that's pretty exciting. I don't know if that has any impact. I don't know. That's the only thing that I've changed, so I feel like that's having a really positive impact on that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I also got her iodine, so I started the buildup of iodine. I'm pretty interested to see how that goes. And I bought her cellular liver cleanse. I have not integrated that one. I basically am doing one at a time. So I started with the silver. I just recently added the iodine, and the next thing I'm going to add in is the liver cleanse to see how these all impact my body. But those are the 3 new ones I've incorporated since having her on the show, and just being super intrigued by what she talked about. So, and I will be having my son start the nasal spray silver pretty quickly too, because he's an asthma sufferer and has some sinus issues and things like that. I probably get asked this next question weekly, a lot of times, multiple times a week. What's the best way to train to get lean? and I share about it a lot, but I just wanted to reinforce it if you haven't heard my explanation. A couple things. It's not just, you can't, just training alone won't make you lean. So some really important factors that help with getting lean, and then I'll talk about the training, is just to reiterate, you have to eat enough protein. Protein is the key catalyst to weight loss. So we always recommend 1 gram per pound of protein for your ideal body weight. Sorry, 1 gram per pound of weight for your ideal body weight. So if you want to be 150 pounds, you want to eat 150 grams of protein every day. It just helps maintain the muscle mass that we have. You got to make sure you're drinking plenty of water. We always recommend half your body weight in ounces of water a day. You want to stay hydrated, cleans your cells, keeps you hydrated, keeps your energy up, does a lot of good things, helps with metabolism. And 3, you got to make sure you're sleeping. Again, 7 to 9 hours every night is the ideal sleep strategy. If you are not sleeping well or enough, there's really no reason to train hard or do any of these other things, because you have this big boulder in your way preventing any change. So eat enough protein, drink enough water, make sure you're sleeping enough, and those 3 things will have a huge impact on the ability to lose weight. Now, when it comes to training and getting lean, what being lean means is you're getting your body fat down and your lean muscle mass up. So the more body fat you lose, the more you maintain or increase your lean muscle mass, the leaner you are getting. So if you want to look lean, that's what has to happen. So all these old school strategies of lots of cardio, HIIT training, they will cause weight loss on the scale. But what they're starting to find and starting to prove is that a lot of that weight loss is, yes, you're losing some fat, but you're also losing muscle, because there's not an emphasis on enhancing muscle growth or maintaining muscle growth. That's why you'll experience in those realms, you'll lose a bunch of weight or some weight really quickly and then kind of stall out. Because as that muscle mass comes off, your metabolism is actually slowing down. The most metabolically active tissue we can have is muscle mass that has been trained. And the way you do that is to lift weights. And it has to be challenging weight, not just light weights, doing really fast, as many as you can, getting the heart rate up really high. That will not create a muscle hypertrophy response. Hypertrophy meaning breaking down so it can grow to get stronger. That will just create a lot of stress hormones or catabolic hormone responses, which means break it down. How we like to teach training methodology to get lean is we like to focus on lifting weights a specific way. And I've had clients do this for years. I learned it probably 20 years ago with my athletes. A gentleman named Charles Poliquin was the first one to introduce me to it. And so I've used it on clients for years, and we built a whole class around it at the weight room using these strategies, and it's just been phenomenal, the response people's bodies are having to it. So we always have a primary lift every day. The primary lifts are the big compound movements like squat, deadlift, hip thrust, bench press, overhead press, incline press, dips or push-ups, those types of things. So we always have a primary movement of the big compound movements to really challenge the muscular system and the strength system. And every 3 weeks, we're changing the rep ranges. We're changing the exercises every 3 weeks to constantly stimulate muscular growth and strength. And then all the secondary movements after that primary movement, we use what's called German body comp training. This is what I learned from Charles Poliquin. It's kind of based on peripheral heart action. So what we're doing is we're taking a lower body movement and pairing it with an upper body movement. So for example, you could go alternating lunges for anywhere from 8 to 15 reps. Take a short rest, anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds, and then do an upper body exercise, say a pull down. Again, anywhere from 8 to 15 reps, and every 3 weeks we're changing those reps and those exercises. And what this is doing is stimulating a growth hormone response, because one of the things we do is we control the eccentric portion of the movement. So as you're lengthening the muscle, we slow that down. So those movements are always anywhere from 3 to 4 seconds, sometimes even 5 or 6 seconds. As the muscle's lengthening, when you control the eccentric movement, you're producing more of a lactic acid response. It burns, like your muscles begin to burn. That's the lactic acid response. As we generate that in the lower body, Then we take a short rest, we go generate in the upper body. Now the body's pushing this lactic acid all over itself. So we have the big primary movement, and we have 3 remedial movements or remedial supersets that are always lower body, upper body splits, training the body. And by keeping the eccentric level slow, the rep ranges from 8 to 15, these are all strategies to maintain or enhance muscle mass. But with the shorter rest periods and going upper to lower splits, it's generating more of that lactic acid. It's nowhere near as hard as like a HIIT workout or a high intense cardio session because your heart rate's not getting as high. We're focused more on making the muscle work hard, not just the heart rate really high. So people all the time say, oh, I didn't burn as many calories. I'm like, well, you don't really know that because all your calorie tracker is doing is tracking your heart rate. It can't track how hard your muscle's working. It can't track what your nervous system is being put through is being so challenged. But this lactic acid generation, what happens when you're done training is the body has to respond by generating more growth hormone. And the growth hormone is then what causes the body to get leaner. And this combination of training, it'll drop body fat quicker than doing the aerobic pathways, but it also will maintain or enhance muscle mass and maintain your strength or enhance your strength. So you're getting the best of all 3 in this system. The other thing is most people are worried about getting big and bulky. That's the other reason I love this style of training is because it's almost impossible. It is impossible. There's not enough muscular breakdown and overload in any one muscle group to create a lot of hypertrophy. It's really my favorite style of training for the female because they're a little more afraid of that than guys. There's not enough muscular breakdown in this style of a training system to create a big hypertrophy response. So it works beautifully well. The one caveat is you got to be careful how much you do it because it's not as challenging from a heart rate standpoint, but it's very challenging on the nervous system and the muscular system. So you have to really focus a lot on recovery around these workouts to get the most out of them. But to this day, that is still the way I believe is the golden ticket to get a good looking body that people are looking for when they say they want to be lean. If you just want to be skinny with no muscle and just lose weight, this is not the way to go. All that cardio stuff is going to be the best way to do that. But I like to work with people that want to look good, feel good, and perform really well in life. And the way we build these workouts also carries over to all the athletic endeavors you like to do, whether it's skiing, whether it's pickleball, tennis, whatever those things are you love to do. This style of training will help enhance all those. So it's pretty cool. I'm a very, very big fan of it. I have been for the last 20 years. But the more I work with, especially the female metabolism, the more I really love this system. Next question. What supplements do you recommend to help recover from injury? That's a good question. I'm actually going through this with my son. 2 weeks ago, he had a little freak accident, got a grade 2 sprain on his MCL on his knee, meaning, so a grade 3 sprain would be a full tear of a ligament. He had a grade 2, so a partial tear of the ligament. So we're working really hard to get that ligament to heal up. So what I have him personally doing, now if he was older, I would have him taking BPC 157. But in my opinion, he's just too young. I don't want to mess with that stuff with him. But if I had the injury, I would definitely be on the BPC 157, but he's too young for that. So I highly recommend the peptide BPC 157 if you're healing from some type of an injury. What I do have him doing is I have him doing collagen peptides. I have him doing 5 grams a day. And then I also have him throwing in some vitamin C, about 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. Those 2 things have been shown to help improve recovery of things like tendons, ligaments, and stuff like that. So he's doing that. I also, if you live in Orange County, there's 2 gentlemen, Dr. Jason Amstutz and Dr. Adams. They work together. They are phenomenal at recovery. All my professional athletes see these guys. Majority of my clients, when they get hurt, I get them over to see these guys. They're phenomenal. So I also have my son going to see these 2, doing, he's in the pool doing rehab. They're working on his knee. They got it all taped up. Like they're doing everything they can using lasers and stuff like that to really optimize his healing. Now, I'm not worried about him getting back to playing football as fast as possible. I'm worried about him getting fully healed. So, I think at 9 years old, that's pretty young to have an injury like this. Scared me a little bit. So we're really focused on doing anything and everything we can to heal up that ligament injury, because that is just something I do not want to haunt him through life. So that's kind of what I have him doing in regards to, and he's my son, in regards to his injury. Again, the one caveat is I would really have him be doing, if he was older, the BPC 157 as well. I don't feel comfortable at his age to do that. But if I had that injury, I'd be doing the same things he's doing plus the BPC 157. So that's kind of my best advice on recovery from injury. So those were the 5 questions that I picked out that I thought had some relevance, that I thought you might all get a little something from, or at least something from one of them. And again, these are just 5 of the kind of questions I got over the last week. If any point any of you have a question you'd love to get an answer from on us, we're going to start doing more of these Q&A type of sessions. Just jump on our Instagram, Your Ultimate Comeback Podcast, and send us a message with your question. And the next time we do a Q&A, we will make sure to get that answered for you. Okay? So it's a little shorter one. Next week, we're going to have Gino on to go do a deeper dive in the peptides, because, again, that's something that's coming up a lot of questions around that. So I'm excited to have him on to talk about that. And outside of that, hope you guys all have a great week. Take care.